All right. To everybody tuning in tonight, welcome. This is kind of a really unique tasting for Barrel 131. Started out with a connection on LinkedIn and kind of blossomed into a bunch of emails and kind of what I would call a friendship. And on my end, it's a bromance. I'm excited about this, I think, more than anybody. But we have a very special guest tonight. Josh, it's Widaman, right? Correct?
Yep.
From the wine.
Thank you for having me. I mean, the feelings are mutual.
Right on, right on. So, Joe, you want to talk about Barrel 131 for a second and kind of what we've been doing?
Barrel 131, we've done a few, what are you having? And I believe this would be episode, yeah, 22, baby. And we just talk about different wines, whiskeys, beers, and whatnot. And Ronnie made this connection, and we are completely honored to have Josh with us tonight. And it was great to get to know you a little bit, and can't wait to see you next week. And Josh is going to walk us through some of his wines and talk about Lewis. And hopefully folks here, Barrel 131 customers, will understand
what a big deal is this.
Overwhelming quality of the wine that it is, and just what a big deal it is. So, Josh, you want to start us off with the Chardonnay, please?
Sure. Let me start you off with the Reserve Napa Chardonnay. Two of the varieties that we're most well known for making into wine are Chardonnay and Cabernet. My mom is a very unbiased observer when she says this, but she says that this is exactly how Chardonnay is supposed to be made. So I want to give you guys that first and foremost. I think the thing that I love so much about our Chardonnay, we make it unfined and unfiltered, which means that you know, a lot of folks these days will either use gelatin or other elements to remove some sediment or to try to clarify the wine. So our wine is still very brilliant, but if you age it over time, you might find just a slight little what looks like dust on the inside of the bottle. But that, for me, it proves that what we got in the vineyard made it straight into the glass in the least adulterated way possible. So what we do with this Chardonnay, when the fruit gets picked, it comes into the winery, we press it, we leave it cold. Within 24 to 48 hours, we put it into a barrel, and it ferments in that barrel, and it stays in that barrel all the way until we pump the wine using gas, using argon gas, a neutral gas, to move it into tank, and then we bottle it. It's a painstaking way to do things, doing barrel fermentation, and it is also it is a little bit harder for us to get the right amount of volume, the maximum amount of volume out of the tank, because out of the barrel. In doing that, we end up having quite a bit of sediment in the barrels that we end up having to leave behind, so that we can end up with wine that is this clear without having to use filtration products to remove anything out of the wine.
Well, see, and I think that's wonderful. It's almost, to me, it's like a trademark of Lewis. When I can open a bottle, to me, which is a young bottle, like a 2016, and I see the crystals on the cork or there's sediment in the glass, that you don't see that in other wines. Right. You don't see that in any other wine. And it's just, it's a testament to how amazing the wine is. It just adds so much to it. Can you talk about that at all?
Sure. I mean, if you're making huge volumes of wine, you obviously are reaching so many consumers that you need to make sure that everything is completely clear. If you're it's almost like if you found something in your Coca-Cola, that wouldn't necessarily be good. But we're producing such a small volume, and we're doing it with such artisan old world techniques that what we feel the filtration does is, sure, it does remove some of it does make the wine a little bit more clear. And again, if you look at this wine, it's perfectly clear as is.
Right.
But we also feel that you don't always get out just that stuff. You also pull other things out of the wine. And when you smell this wine and when you taste this wine, what we believe you're getting significantly more intense aromatics, not only from the fruit that we got out of the vineyard, but also from the beautifully coopered barrels that we fermented in. You're getting a lot of caramel and graham cracker crust and toasty elements out of the barrel. And then out of the fruit, you're getting more poached pear and hints of ripe apple, maybe a little bit of cinnamon out of the fruit. And first and foremost, I think it's the body. It's that richness. When this wine hits your palate, it's not so big that it feels oily. But what it does, it hits your palate with a viscosity and a weight that really shows you that there's a presence of the wine, rather than just being something that's more insipid and just kind of washes off of your palate like water.
It's beautiful. I mean, tell me what am I supposed to be smelling here? I know what I'm smelling.
For this specific bottling for the Reserve Chardonnay, this is not only do we go through and taste through all of our lots and decide what our best lots are, we also go through and then barrel by barrel, Randy, Dennis, myself, and the assistant winemaker taste barrel by barrel and select specific barrels solely for this bottling. And the reason that we do that is we're aiming for, for me, in the end, what you should see in this glass is the best creme brulee you've ever had, with
nice, right on.
Yeah. With maybe a pear or an apple compote on top. Yeah. So not that sweet, but that kind of creaminess, that kind of richness, the caramel notes, and I really think that right now even, I tasted this a few minutes ago, but I'm still getting that floral perfume from kind of like a white, maybe something you get from a honeydew melon as well, that kind of more floral perfumey quality, and then I'm still getting a little bit of that what you would say in fancy terms you'd call it pain gruyere, but what I call it toast. When you have just the right amount of burnt edges on a pastry that you pull out of the oven, or on a graham cracker crust on a pie, things like that.
GBA, I think they call it golden brown and delicious, or some GBAD.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the finish is fantastic.
Oh my God!
I mean, just let it keep living, all the way down. It's not, like you said, it just doesn't wash off like water. It hangs on in a good way, and you can really enjoy it. So yeah.
And this really excites me. I told my friends here tonight that I've been, your palate, you go through different things. My friend Kelly, he calls it Cabernation. As we go into fall and winter, it's Cabernet time. But summertime is the rosé, and I'm really excited. We got the Vin Gris coming in, and I can't wait to try that. But I've been on a Chardonnay kick lately. Like, I can't get enough Chardonnay, and I like that it's a bigger wine, obviously, than the Sauv Blanc. The alcohol content's a little higher, which for a big guy like me, I need a little more cake in my wine. But there's just more there, and it's not as acidic, it's not as astringent. It's smoother, it's silkier. There's a lot more going on. What would you pair with this? What would you eat with this?
So for me, probably the single best thing I ever had paired with this is it took many tries to get a white wine and butter sauce to not. But at home, when I made a white wine and butter sauce or a beurre blanc sauce, and then I put it with a sea bass, like a nice some kind of, or even a swordfish, something like that.
Now, you're cooking with Lewis?
Well, I mean, you end up having to open another bottle, right? So that there's not necessarily a bad thing. But yes, I do use it sparingly, but I use it for two reasons. The first reason is I want to have a glass of wine while I'm cooking, so I might as well open something.
Right.
And then the other reason is when I was at Chimney Rock Winery, we had a chef on staff, and he would always introduce me to these interesting recipes that he would make for wine club dinners. And one time I saw him cooking with Chimney Rock wines, and I said, what are you doing?
Yeah.
He said, well, you see all the other ingredients that I have here? I said, yeah. He said, every single one of them came from a specific farm, and the farmer, you know, we've contracted with this farmer to spend extra time making all these ingredients that I'm using in these meals, you know, to be the best, you know, the ultimate. He said, well, why would I put junk wine in and ruin it?
True. That's a good call.
No
I don't-
buck chuck in your sauces.
I don't know if I can pull that trigger though. I'm not gonna lie. It was,
Yeah, you know, my wife usually, if she's in the kitchen, she usually smacks my hand and then pulls the bottle away and takes it over the table.
nice. All right. So moving on from the Chard. Well, no.
One thing that I wanted to show you real quick. So this is our Sonoma Chardonnay, and you don't have that in front of you, so I'll just talk about it real quick, and then we can move on to the next one. But the main reason I wanted to point it out is we're best known for making Napa Valley Chardonnay, Napa Valley Cabernet. But we actually, for a long time, have been making some pretty phenomenal Russian River Chardonnay as well. And the thing that I'm the biggest fan of about the wines, just as a consumer, not having to do anything about the fact that I make them, just when I look at the wines, I always like to be able to look at wines as far as appellations, the growing region, the vineyard that they're from. And the great thing about our wines is the same exact winemaking team, the same exact ownership, the same exact barrels. Everything is the same for these two different regions. And so when you taste our Napa versus our Russian River wines side by side, you really do get to see, if you really do like the style of Napa, but you want to see what that style looks like from a different locale. The Sonoma, for instance, where I describe different flavors that are similar to a creme brulee with a fruit compote, on the Sonoma, it's almost more, it's a little bit more tropical. There is a little bit more floral aspect, but it is also more like pineapple upside down cake. So we still have those caramely and those pastry type, confectionery type flavors and aromatics, but a little bit more tropical bent. So, you know, just kind of if one of your customers isn't necessarily wants something that's maybe a little bit racier than our Napa, because our Napa is definitely kind of our gold standard. I think the Sonoma really gives you a way to change gears, but at the same time have a phenomenally rich wine as well.
Interesting.
Nice. Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah. So, Josh, before we get into the other three, and we'll knock out those, I gotta ask. Tell us more about Lewis. Tell us about Lewis Cellars and what makes it so special.
And why are you there?
Well, I'm here. I've been here for 8 years. The winery's actually been in business for almost 3 decades, 28 years total. And I'm here because for the 12 years that I was in the business before I started working here, I was buying Lewis Cellars wines and tasting them blind alongside other wines that I was helping make, just to try to see what my neighbor was doing, you know, just peeking over the fence. And so I've always been a fan of these wines. And when I was approached by Randy and Debbie and Dennis, the family that owns Lewis and that takes part in making these wines with me, they approached me because they knew I had what it took to make this style and this richness. And this is a style of wine that pushes the boundaries from out in the vineyards when we're working hand in hand with the growers, we're asking for them to do more canopy work, more work with the clusters than a lot of their other clients are. But we're also paying for that quality. So we're working hand in hand with them. We're getting the best out of the vineyard. And then in the winery, we're riding a razor's edge, but it can be, when I first started here, it could be pretty mind-boggling and stressful harvest. But now I've come to just kind of live in that zone. And the opportunity to make wines of this caliber for as many years as I've been making them here at Lewis was an opportunity I couldn't give up. I mean, our wines in Wine Spectator are always, we always get more than 90 points. We're typically in the 92 to 97 point range, which is the top level of wines that they rate. In 2016, we made our Napa Cabernet, which we're going to taste later and talk about. We got #1 wine of the year. That's every single wine that they've tasted from every wine growing region around the world. And we were able to say that this little mom and pop shop in Napa, California was able to make the #1 wine out of all those wines. But that being said,
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
you know, over the years that we've been in business and having Wine Spectator taste our wines, we've been in the top 100 numerous times. I mean, the 2010 bottling of our Reserve Cabernet, which I got the opportunity to bottle as part of the winemaking team here, that was one of the top 10 wines of the year. That was #9. So we continue to, even though we only make about 9,000 to 10,000 cases a year, you know, spread out over quite a few different bottlings, you know, 17, 18 different bottlings a year. We're still able to make wines that we feel, and the critics of Wine Spectator continue to reinforce this fact, that these wines are battling it out with some of the best in the world. And that's, for me, you know, once I've finally realized that you could actually get paid to make wine for a living, opportunity to make the kinds of wines that would perform year in and year out at that level, that's been my goal from day one.
Well, you're doing an amazing job. Yeah. At Barrel, we have beer, wine, and spirits, and right now there's a battle for allocated bourbons and spirits. I would put Lewis in that upper allocated bourbon spirits world. You know, like Kelly, he'll tell you, we struggle to get the Lewis that we do. So if somebody sees a bottle of it, I would tell them they got to pull the trigger on it. Finding that on our shelf is like finding a very top end allocated bourbon.
You found an Easter egg if you can find it. Yeah.
Right. So like you said, 10,000 cases. Does that encompasses all the varietals that you do?
All the bottles.
Correct. So most of the bottlings that we do, we're only bottling 100 to 300 cases, and 100 to 300 seems like a big number, but in the wine world, that's minuscule.
Right. And so, like I said, that's got to go across the United States, the entire United States. So,
well, a lot of them, like you said, stay in the winery only. So,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, some of them have to make it. I mean, a majority of our business is done here in the U.S., and we're big fans of that. We're based in California, but we have wines going all the way across the United States. We're in every market in the U.S., but they also have to go to Europe. We kind of have them go everywhere, but we really focus our marketing efforts, where we're moving the wines in the States here through relationships such as yours. I mean, we were talking earlier, sometimes the ability to get a bottle or two here or there off of an allocation list that you weren't on originally just requires you to call me up and give me a nudge and maybe take one free, right?
Right. We're extremely thankful for that nudging.
It's funny that you bring up bourbons, because I just missed out on a special bottling of Angel's Envy just the other day. I was searching for their newest release, which is made in Japanese oak barrels.
Wow.
So I understand intimately the troubles and travails of allocation as a consumer.
Right.
One more quick question before we go on to the next one. How often are you in the vineyards? How many days a month or week? Or I mean, I'm sure now it's more since harvest is coming, but.
Well, yeah, you can't see right now, but I'm wearing shorts and tennis shoes because I was hiking through vineyards up until about half an hour before we got on this Zoom call. So starting from bloom, starting from bud break, I started walking through vineyards within about a month of bud break, which is back in, March, April time. And then as harvest gets closer and closer, then I'll start by going out once every 3 to 4 weeks. And then these days I'm out in vineyards at least twice a week, and I'm in every single block now that we're within about a week of our first pick right now. And so I'm currently going to be seeing every single block of grapes that we purchase fruit from once a week from now through the end of October or whenever we're done picking.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's a rough job. I get to, hike the hills and valleys of, the inlets and valleys of Napa Valley. I mean,
Bless your heart.
That's a tough one. Somebody's got to do it though, right?
I do it for you, and I do it for all of your customers, because I wouldn't want you guys to have to put in so many miles. Your vineyards.
What would they do? All right, so we're gonna move on. We're ready for. We're excited. Here comes probably on the shelf we have. It's called Kelly's favorite. This is the Alex Blend.
Alex Blend. So Alec is the oldest of 3 grandsons. I should actually take it back a little ways, because I'm guessing that you probably have some
This pour that Joe. This is a pour. This is our tasting.
Well, we're gonna might as well taste it. Right? It's not like we're putting it in a sauce or something.
You're gonna be a bear. Be aggressive. Nice.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't get back to Randy. He's probably gonna give me a smack over the head on that one.
He won't get it from us, I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
Alex Blend.
a race car driver. So I'm sure you have some racing fans that are some of your customers. So Randy was an IndyCar driver for many years. He and his wife made friends with some of their sponsors who were here in the South Bay, and some of those sponsors had enough money that after they retired out of their main job, they moved up here to Napa to purchase some land and plant vineyards. And at that point in time, Randy and Debbie were already looking toward the next chapter in their life and in their business. And running into walls at 200 miles an hour wasn't necessarily something that was going to keep working for very much longer.
Right.
Debbie got into the wine business side of the wine, selling and marketing, and Randy got into the grape growing and winemaking. And so that was the first vintage was back in 1992, and they built it from a few barrels that they got from a friend that they worked with, and now we have our own building. Over the years we bounced around to different custom crush operations, but since 2003, so for almost 2 decades now, we've been housed here in the same winery in the Oak Knoll region of Napa, making these wines.
Hey, quick, the cooperage. I would probably say, what do you think? Most of the barrels come from our area, right?
From Cuba, Missouri.
Cuba, Missouri, Lebanon, Missouri.
Oh yeah, we do get some great American oak from out there. A Sagam Row is a French cooper that has a cooperage over there. They work with a family to cooper our barrels, and then I'm also getting some from. Why am I forgetting the name of our? Primarily, our cooper barrels are Sagam Row, American we're using in the. So thank you guys for that.
Yeah, sorry. All right,
Yes,
so
here, I mean, the amazing thing about Alex Blend is, so you saw how dark it was in the camera when you put the wine up there, but if you swirl it in the light, it's actually, amazingly inky. It's purple hued. It's still, even though it's really thin when you're swirling like that, it's still, opaque.
Mm-hmm.
When you stick your nose in the glass, I think the most fun thing about this wine, so this is named after, there's 3 grandsons in the family. It was named after the oldest. And so the oldest had to have a special wine that was all his own. So this wine is a blend of primarily, it actually starts off as a base of Syrah and Merlot. I usually try not to tell people that when they first try this wine, because I think if you tried the wine without tasting it, I think you'd fall in love with it, even if you were somebody who didn't necessarily like Syrah or Merlot, for instance. I think the Merlot lends this velvety, soft texture on the edges, but the Syrah is this, it's like a fighter's fist inside of a glove, and the Merlot is the glove that kind of layers over that. So you get this great color, this deep, inky dark color from the Syrah. You get that powerful structure, but then you get a softness and roundness to the wine. I think for me personally, this I call this my barbecue wine. The reason why is not because it goes great with barbecue, although
Tell me you pour steak or something like that.
no, I mean it goes.
Pour some like a blend on there.
Yeah, no, I use this as the base for my rib sauce. Yeah. Yeah. No.
I'm coming to your house for
The secret ingredient for my rib sauce is actually a margarita mix. That once that citrus is reduced down, then it gives a nice glaze and a nice nice little extra flavor to the ribs. But I call this my barbecue. Whether you're doing burgers, whether you're doing steaks, I call this my barbecue wine. More importantly, not because it goes with a number of dishes, but most importantly, it goes with a number of friends. I have a wide range of friends. I have friends that are they're only into hunting big game, right? They only want the highest end bottle. They only want to have the single best whiskey. If they can't have the best whiskey, then they're not going to have the second best whiskey, right? Or if they can't have a $200 bottle of wine, then they don't want it. Then they don't want any part of it. But then I also have friends and family who wine, they just know what they like. They know that if they put it in their mouth and it tastes good, that they're going to be fans of it. And so my favorite thing about this wine is this wine works for all those people. I don't have to feel like I'm providing a wine that isn't up to one friend's standards. But then at the same time, I feel like I'm meeting that person's standards, but at the same time, the people that don't necessarily know what they're looking for in a wine, when they have this wine, because of that richness, because of that texture, and because it comes off smooth and not, I think a lot of people who are shy about really getting into bigger red wines feel that way because they've had wines that were overly tannic and overly rough. And I think that this wine has the richness of texture you can get from big tannins, but they're ripe and so they're soft, and you get a smoothness in the wine, but also that voluptuousness that I think that somebody who's used to a bigger wine is looking for.
Well, I'll brag on him for a second. Our wine buyer, I think everybody knows who he is. He will tell you if you catch him in barrel and he has a bottle of this, he will pour you a glass, and if you don't like it, or if you go buy the bottle, if you don't like it, he'll buy it. He'll pay for it because he guarantees you will like it. Everybody will like this wine. And so, what you said, I dare somebody to try this and not like it.
Well, I gotta say, I love your store. This is great. I mean, not only do I have you guys working sales, but we've even got customers selling the wine for us. This is great.
And it works well.
Yeah.
Hey, talk about legs, if you could, for just a second, because these are real slow running legs. What does that mean? What do you look at when you're as a winemaker? What does that tell you?
Well, so legs can be a result of a number of different things, but the most important thing that legs shows people is it shows people the viscosity of the wine. And why that's actually important is because it gives you a good hint as far as how that wine is going to feel on your palate, how rich that wine is going to taste. And I feel that all the wines that we make end up with a decent amount of legs. It ends up being a result of a number of factors, but primarily it comes from the concentration of the fruit on the vine in the vineyard. And so when you're getting, very small clusters with very small berries, you're getting really concentrated juice, and that concentrated juice is just going to give you that viscosity that in turn, when you swirl your glass, hand and look at it. I mean, I don't know that it's going to come out in the video all that well, but I mean, you can see how slowly those legs are forming. I mean, I could leave that glass here for another minute or longer and still have more legs, you know, flowing down the sides of the glass. But
there was a good shot of it. Yeah.
just to give you know your standard consumer a heads up, legs can come from a variety of things. You shouldn't use that as the only way that you're focusing on a wine. But really, if you're looking at it and you see those legs there, you can typically tend to expect that you're going to get a little bit more, you know, roundness and juiciness, you know, on the palate. I keep doing this because in my mind, that's how I picture it, right? It's like it'd be like a big juicy grape when you toss it in your mouth, and you can really feel the texture of the juice on your palate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I know that's
what you're talking about.
Like you said, it's not really a indicator of quality or anything, but it tells you what you're going to get on the palate and things. And that a lot of people look at legs and they don't know what they're talking about, but they say, "Oh, it's got legs." But yeah, that makes perfect sense. So it gives you a sense of what it's going to be on the palate, real good. So in the mouthfeel.
Well, I think that you know, a lot of consumers can be a little bit scared about some of these terminology. I think sometimes when we talk about wine, folks like you and I who have a lot deeper vocabulary in wine can start talking about things like that and scare people away. And so it's good to just have you know, a real down to earth, easy way to understand what we're talking about. And that, I think if your average consumer understood what legs means, I think they'd start paying attention to it. And it's also, I mean, it's like when you get into cigars or whiskey, or, you know, even if you get into great books and certain authors, you have this parlance and this, you know, the deeper you get into something, the more the broader knowledge you can really dive deep on and talk about.
Yeah, you can go down a rabbit hole. And
Right.
by the way, just for the record, thank you for including us at your level, but
Right,
no, we're not going to accept that. But thank you, we appreciate the effort.
I will say this on several of the "What are you having" videos, which is what we're doing now. I try to tell somebody when they're smelling the wine, and I don't know if you agree, try to pick out 3 things that you smell. You know, if you smell, like earlier, we had opened the 2011 Lewis Merlot, and I smelled, you know, that smell when you beat erasers together. It was a chalky, dusty smell to it, and then it changed as the wine was opening for a little bit. It moved into more of like a barbecue, peppery type smell to it, and so it kind of changed. And so I tell people to try to like associate your mind with what you're drinking. So.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I've been doing this for, let's see, I've been working in the wine industry for over 20 years, but I've been studying wine for about 25 years. And it's really making connections between what you smell and taste on a daily basis and what you're getting in the glass. So you know, you don't necessarily need to know what cassis smells like, but you probably know what raspberries smell like and taste like versus blackberries. And yeah, you know what it smells like not when it's raining, but right before it's about to rain. That smell, where you know that a thunderstorm's coming. It's things like that where, you know, my wife even has one descriptor where she says, "Oh, this wine, not any of these wines in front of us, but she brought this up at dinner one time. We bought this one bottle of wine, and she said, this wine tastes like when ants walk on your food at a picnic, and then you eat it."
That's a taste?
Yeah.
So I still don't know what that tastes like personally, but I know what that wine tastes like, right? So it's really just, you know, getting your own descriptors, being, you know, anything that you're able to connect. That's really the most fun part about wine, and being able, you know, one reason why I will open more than one bottle of wine, you know, for dinner is so that and I'll throw corks in them if they last overnight. Then just seeing how the wine changes, not over time during just the evening, but on into another day. A wine, these wines that I have poured in front of me and what you have poured in front of you, I'm sure that the way they smell right now is going to be significantly different than how they smell and taste in half an hour or 45 minutes, if any is still left in your glass, right?
Right. Yeah.
Speaking of that, probably what I smell right now is an empty glass. So
Yeah.
so segue.
Yeah.
Time for the next wine. So here we have Mason's Cabernet. So Mason is the youngest of the grandkids, and so he didn't get anything special except for a wine bottle with his name on it. This right here is our entry-level Cabernet.
I'm gonna try not to cuss online, but if you can see the difference of Joe's pour and my pour, because I complained about the last one, and now look at me.
You give him too much, he whines. You give him not enough, he whines.
You guys are like business partners.
Exactly. Salute to that. Anyway, go ahead.
Here. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What did you say?
No, I said exactly that. Go ahead. Let's get into the wine.
So Mason's Cabernet, I think a beautiful thing about this wine is it still has the same color that you expect to see out of a Lewis Cellars bottling. It's still beautiful, dark, rich hued. It's not as inky as the Alex blend because it doesn't have that Syrah in there, but it still has a nice purple hue to it. Our entry-level Cabernet, this is the wine that what you're gonna, if you go into high-end restaurants or wine shops, this is what you might be able to find on the buy the glass list if you're able to find a Lewis Cellars wine. And what we do with this is any lots of Cabernet that we pick, and we ended up pushing them on the ripeness to such a point that they don't necessarily have the tannin structure that we're looking for from an ageability standpoint, but they still have a beautiful voluptuous character to them. I do a little bit more American oak in this bottling, so there are a little bit more whiskey lactones that show up in this bottling. There is a good there is still plenty of vanilla and baking spices in here, and you get just the pure blackberry compote. This is for drinking now. You can definitely age it if you would like, but this is a wine that upon release is ready for you to have with dinner tonight and into the future. If you buy one of our higher end bottlings of Cabernet, then those are built for extended aging, looking out for 5, 10, 15, 20 years in advance. This will definitely still age nicely for 5 to 10 years, but realistically, this is for you drop by the shop, you need a bottle that's going to go great with your grass-fed beef. Go with a nice New York, or me personally, I go ribeye. But
ribeye.
Hey, there you go.
You're gonna be able to chew into this wine really easy. It's gonna be soft and easy. It's gonna just go so well with that steak.
Agreed. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But like you said, the tannins aren't quite there, and that's by design. But
yeah, no, by design. I mean,
yeah,
there are tannins there, but they're not going to be. If you open our Napa Valley bottling of Cabernet, which we're about to taste, or our reserve bottling, the tannins in the reserve Cabernet, they have polished edges, but they are definitely they're definitely significantly more brutish, and the main reason why is because we've selected lots and put a blend together that is going to over time soften more to the point that in a way you could almost think of this wine as being kind of fast forward. You'll see how the tannins in that reserve, while the fruit flavors are still as bright and fruity as they would be in a young wine, you get to see how the tannin profile would be in an older wine with that softness.
Mhm.
All right, Josh, I'm going to ask you kind of a dork question here. When you taste wine, are you like, where do you put it in your mouth? What do you do? Are you a swisher? Do you,
You
lay
chew.
it, do you chew? What does Josh Widaman do when he tastes wine?
Well, these days, it comes, it's almost a reflex for me. I don't even think about it. But first thing swirl. You want to look at the color, look at the legs. I always make sure to show people when I get my nose in that glass, I'm going all the way in there, right? I'm not being shy. When I put it on my palate, I actually, do you remember, those bird whistles that have a little bit of water in them? I don't know if you ever had one of those as a kid. You put a little bit of water in a bird whistle, and when you blew through it, it kind of sounded like it was chirping.
Yeah.
So I kind of do that with my mouth. And the reason why is I put the wine in my mouth, I breathe air in through my mouth, and then I breathe it out through my nose. And the reason I do that is that your main nasal nerve is right back here in this cavity. And 2/3 of taste is actually smell. So I'm taking as much of these aromatics, in the glass and then also in my mouth and sending them past that nasal nerve as much as possible. Just trying to, it's almost like giving your, racing, you would use nitro to give your engine a boost and get extremely high horsepower. Well, here, that's kind of what I'm doing with that. So I'll have the wine right on the center of my palate. I'll breathe the air over it, and then I will move it over my palate twice, back and forth, before right now I'm swallowing, but normally, when you're tasting, 50 to 100 barrels in a day, you have to spit. Right now I'm tasting through 5 wines with you, so I don't have to do that. But and then I think one thing that some people miss out on is in between tastes. If you just pay attention, if you just keep breathing through your mouth, in through your mouth and out through your nose, you'll continue to see those flavors, especially at winemaking levels like this, at this quality level of wine. If you are paying attention to how the aromatics and flavors change in the wine even after you've swallowed, I think that's a lot of the fun that you can get in this style of wine.
Absolutely, that's awesome. That's probably one of the best descriptions of how to run wine through a palate that we've had.
I didn't know there was a nerve up here. That's good to know.
Yeah. No, I'll actually do that when I'm eating other foods now, just because, and even if you're having a really good steak, it'll actually boost the flavors that you're seeing in that steak. You'll really start seeing some nuances of, if you have some type of sauce that you're having with your steak, or even special seasonings, whatever your special seasoning is at home that you use, you'll be able to pick out. Oh, that's right there.
Just gonna pour.
Yeah, a Lewis butter. Yeah,
why not?
Let's see what that does.
Yeah, let's just pour Lewis over butter and see what happens with our steak.
So now we're gonna taste the one that we all came here for, right?
That's right.
Yep.
Here's the.
I'm really excited, Josh. I will not lie to you. I've never tried this wine before. This is new to me. I've never had the Napa.
This is the 2016 vintage of the Napa Cab. The 2013 of the Napa Cab is the one that got us the Wine of the Year award. Where is it? Right there.
Nice. Nice.
Shameless plug.
No, do it.
Out of all of our wines, this is the wine where the Mason has softer tannins and has a little bit more American oak. The Napa Valley has a little bit less American oak, more significantly more French oak. So it's a little bit softer oak profile, a little more vanilla, less so spice characters. But then also the fruit that the wines that we're blending into this bottling, a lot have the most varietal, what you call varietal typicity. You can really taste the vineyard and the Cabernet Sauvignon grape in this bottle. In the reserve, you're getting a little bit more barrel influence because we have a little bit higher percentage of new oak, and then we also have a little bit more brutish tannins in that wine, so it's made to lay down in aging. This one should be bright. I say bright and fruity, but when you say things like that, it almost makes the wine sound a little bit airy and not really not have a lot of presence. But I think that you have, hopefully, I think you guys need to pour more wine in your glasses, first of all. I don't think you poured enough in those glasses.
Thank you for noticing, Josh. You saw Ronnie poured that, right? Not Joe.
Yeah, I could tell.
Josh, it's amazing to hear the science and the winemaker, dork talk around this, but like, what does it take to be the #1 wine in the world? There's thousands of wines. This is the #1 wine in the country or in the world. But what does that take?
But first, just so you know, when I put my nose in my glass from my tiny little pour that my friend poured for me,
It wasn't tiny.
I literally the hair came up on my arm. That's a true story. Literally the hair came up on my arm.
That is great to hear. Thank you.
Golly. Anyway, so he had a question. I don't know.
The glass that I'm smelling right now has a lot of, for me, I'm linking up with some boysenberry jam character in mine, right? Like a little bit brighter fruit character, but still, a rich, deep character as well. And I think compared to the Masons, you can see the tannins still, they're not chalky or astringent, but they definitely, it's kind of the difference between, I'd say, the tannins in the Masons are a little bit more milk chocolatey, whereas the tannins in the Napa are a little bit more not baker's chocolate, but a little bit more, a little bit less milk chocolatey, a little bit more baker's chocolatey.
Sure. Yeah. A little darker chocolate. Yeah.
Yeah, I say that with every time I have it, that it's almost like you take a tablespoon of unsweetened cocoa powder and put it into the wine. There's just a richness of dark chocolate in there.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So to get back to your last question, what does it take? Well, I mean, my old boss at Paulmeyer, one of her favorite statements was, "I'd rather be lucky than good." And she's Paulmeyer Wines, where I used to work, and Erin Green, my mentor there. They're one of the best wines to be made in the world, and she's one of the best winemakers I know of in the world. So I think it takes a whole lot of dedication to craft. I think what separates us from larger producers is truthfully just we spend as much time as somebody making 1 million cases of wine. We just have, and they might have some of the same great vineyards that we have, but whereas all of our vineyards are at probably the 80th to 90th percentile from a quality standpoint in the Napa Valley. If you're making 1 million cases of wine, you got to blend some other stuff in there.
There's got to be, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just use the cream. And so I think that we luck out, and as far as vineyard sources are concerned, we get to, Randy has even told me, he needs this business to make sense money-wise. It needs to be a functioning business. But if we're working with fruit that isn't good, he wouldn't want to do this anymore. So the fact is, we get to deal with the cream of the crop as far as fruit is concerned. We work in one of the best growing regions in the world. I think that the 2013 vintage, where we got Wine of the Year, that was a famous vintage for Napa Valley wines around the world. And actually, 2013 was my second vintage here at the winery. And across the board, pretty much every single one of our wines, we either tied or bettered whatever the best score was we had gotten on pretty much every wine from that vintage.
Wow.
So, I think you make your own luck. I think everybody knows you make your own luck, and it's just being there at the right time and being able to take that opportunity when it presents itself, and being able to be prepared for that.
I'm gonna throw it out there. I think it's more than luck. I think you guys have an angel on your side. You want to kind of go into that? I would tell anybody watching this video right now, as soon as you're done with watching this video, go and watch Randy accept the Wine of the Year award. And it was right after Debbie. You want to tell that story?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So 1992 was the first vintage, and it was Randy and Debbie. Randy and Debbie were married. They were married for almost 40 years. Dennis, Randy's stepson, Debbie's son, is our president, and now he and Randy are owners. But we actually lucked out that Debbie was able to see the award be given to us in the Wine Spectator magazine in December of 2016. But unfortunately, in January of 2017, building block of what we do, the main force behind the forming of Lewis Cellars and how we carry ourselves and what we do today was Debbie Lewis, and we lost her in January of 2017. But to this day, the very first day of harvest when we blessed the grapes, she would always have champagne there. We would always bless the grapes with champagne. She was a cheese and champagne and Sauvignon Blanc fan. That's the only reason why Randy Lewis will tell you himself. The only reason we make Sauvignon Blanc is because of Debbie Lewis, and he'll also the only reason the Lewis Cellars exists is because of Debbie Lewis. And so we still, to this day, toast her at every event. I'd like to toast her now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cheers to Debbie. Oh.
Cheers. And actually, a great thing that we now do with all of our intern staff is her birthday is in the beginning of November. And so that's right around the time that we're about to ship all of our intern temporary staff back to their respective homes after we've hopefully, overloaded them with information and also gotten a boatload of help out of their efforts. But to celebrate her birthday on an annual basis now, she was a huge foodie. And so now we basically have a Thanksgiving type meal at lunch for her birthday where every single person brings whatever dish that is like the single best dish that they make in the repertoire. Whether it's, we've got people coming from around the world to help us typically. So, if it's a special dish from their home country, or if it's somebody from here in Napa or, over on the East Coast or somewhere from the Midwest, whatever, even if it's cheesy potatoes, whatever their family's go-to dish was, we have a Thanksgiving dinner meal to celebrate her birthday and kind of toast the end of harvest, so to speak.
That's fantastic.
That's really cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome stuff. And I love Lewis.
These wines are great by themselves, but with great food, I think it takes it to the next level.
Right.
Absolutely.
And if we can get you to come out here, we will show you some great food. We've got some pretty amazing steaks around here. So
I don't doubt it. Yeah, no, as soon as we're all able to do things, that aren't just Zoom meetings, right? Where we can actually give each other a hug and shake each other's hands. I look forward to being out there and being introduced to the best that you guys can offer.
Nice, absolutely.
We'll gladly have you.
Josh,
we will gladly have you.
Thank you so much, man.
Want to point out there's one more step up. I guess you would call it a step up. The reserve,
Yes.
right?
Yes, that's our reserve Cabernet.
Yeah, turn that around.
So interestingly enough, that was the Napa Cab, the year that we got Wine of the Year for that. Speaking just as a winemaker, not as a wine critic, but as a winemaker, my argument was that wasn't even the best wine I made that vintage.
Right.
Oh, was that kind of like a?
Yeah, I didn't tell that to the Wine Spectator editors. I saved that one just for my friends and family. But yeah, that reserve, it's the big bad wolf, so to speak. It's a big unctuous, juicy, textured Cabernet.
I love it.
So this is a 16 that we have right here, and that's what we have at barrel.
Yes.
Yes, we have the at Barrel 131. We have the
And
16.
I believe we only have a couple bottles of it.
There's not a lot, but
Right.
how long? When would you suggest somebody crack something like this open?
So for me, on a bottle like that, I mean,
Tonight.
yeah, truthfully, my first response whenever somebody asks me that is cellar it for as long as you can keep from opening it. Because Lord knows I've had plenty of wines that I had in my cellar and I opened them, within a month or two of buying them, right? And
Yeah.
the wine was still phenomenal. And sure, I thought, well, it could have taken a few more years age, but it's not like the wine sucked. It was still a phenomenal bottle of wine. But that bottle of wine there that you're talking about, I'd say that it's going to really start reaching its peak somewhere in 10 to 15 years. The wines that I have, so I only have wines that I've made from Lewis Cellars. So my oldest wines are 8 years old, and I'd say that they really start climbing up to that peak around year 5, and in the 8 to 10 to 12 year range, they're beautiful. They're beautiful. The one thing that I always warn consumers is, for instance, with my family, I've done a vertical tasting of wines that I made over a 5 to 10 year period. And, my dad and I would be tasting through this vertical tasting it. And my dad asked me, he says, they're all beautiful wines, but this vintage, and they're typically over on the younger side. And the reason why is because the younger that they are, the more fruit profile you're going to get in the wines. And if you like something to be most powerful from a fruit perspective, you want to hit these things on the front end. If you're really looking for more of those evolved aromatics like tobacco, cigar box, or dried earth, things like that, and then just having nuances of currant and blackberry, things like that, that's when you're really pushing out to that 15, 20-year age. I think that our wines are on par, especially that reserve bottle I'm talking about, are on par with some of the best Cabernet made in the world. And some of those Cabernets out there tell you should age them for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So I think if you have the right cellar storage temperature, and you get the wine straight from the shop, store it away, to say how many more decades it could go. Just be prepared that every year that you go, that fruit profile is to get those other tertiary aromatics to form, you have to give up, some of those bright fruit characters to really get that wine to evolve.
Wow, cool. Great way to put it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Josh, I cannot thank you enough. This is fantastic. It's been awesome. Like I said, I got to try some wines that I've never had before. Tried the #1 wine in the country. I don't know. This is amazing. Thank you so much.
In the little town of Jackson, when you come here, we will show you around. But until then, the little town of Jackson, we're gonna show you off. We're gonna show you off.
Well, thank you guys very much for your support. I got to tell you that the little town of Jackson isn't little to me, because it takes little towns of Jackson all over this country to be able to help me do what I love to do, which is making these wines. So without your customers, without people, without folks such as you guys, getting the word out there and supporting what we do, we couldn't keep doing it. So you guys keep up the great work as well. Thank you so much.
Cheers, my friend.
To Debbie,
Cheers.
to Cellars, to Josh, and to Great Wine and Great Friends. Till we meet again.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Josh.